All right, welcome back. The Iranian regime executed 3 men who were accused of killing police officers during the January 2026 protests, with activists warning of the risk of a new surge in hangings as war rages with Israel and the United States. They were the first hangings Iran has carried out related to the nationwide demonstrations that were met with a brutal crackdown by the authorities. Out of the 3 executed, the one that gained the most public dissent was Saleh Mohammadi, a young wrestler whose death has brought a huge wave of public dissent. Hello and welcome. You're watching Deep Dive by NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and today we talk about Saleh Mohammadi, a young wrestler who was brutally executed over protests in Iran. In the dusty wrestling rooms of Saleh, a small city in central Iran, a boy was born on the 11th of March 2007. His name was Saleh Mohammadi. By the time he turned 15, Saleh had become more than just another young face in Qom. He was a son, a teammate, a dreamer who carried the weight of his family's hopes on his shoulders every time he stepped onto the mat. Friends remember him as quiet but determined, the kind of athlete who trained before sunrise and stayed after everyone else had gone home. He lived in Qom, trained relentlessly, and posted short videos on Instagram showing his daily grind, lifting, drilling, pushing through injuries. His last post, 3 months before everything changed, read simply, "And we held beyond what we ever imagined for ourselves." That caption would become tragically prophetic. Saleh Mohammadi was a rising star of Iranian freestyle wrestling. In 2023, at just 16, he finished 3rd at the National Cadet Championships. That bronze earned him an invitation to the Iranian Cadet National Team training camp. State media called him one of the country's future athletic talents. He fought his way into the 71 kilogram spot on the National Cadet Freestyle Squad. By April 2024, he had climbed again, provincial champion, national champion, and silver medalist at the Abdullah Mowahid International Cup. The junior national team camp opened its doors to him. Then came September 2024, representing Iran at the prestigious Setiev International Cup in Krasnoyarsk, Russia, when the 17-year-old Saleh stood on the podium and received the bronze medal. A national team athlete, a champion, the world was staring to notice the kid from Saleh. Coaches described him as powerful, technically sharp, and fearless. Teammates said that he had the heart of a lion. Elite Iranian wrestlers around the world were already calling him the next big name. He was not just good, he was on the path to Olympic dreams. But in January 2026, Iran erupted once more. Nationwide protests swept the country after years of grievances, economic collapse, repression, and the endless cycle of state violence. In the holy city of Qom, thousands took to the streets on the 8th of January. Among them was Saleh Mohammadi. He was arrested on January 15th. The regime, in fact, accused him of the unthinkable, stabbing a special unit police officer to death during the protests. They claimed he delivered the fatal blow with a knife. The charge carried the death penalty under Iran's Qisas law, retribution in kind, and the even more lethal label of Muhabara, enmity against God. Saleh's family, coaches, and teammates immediately provided alibis. They swore he was at his uncle's house that night, nowhere near the clash. Security cameras, they said, never captured his face, but the state had already extracted a confession. Saleh later told the court the confession was beaten out of him. His hands had been fractured from torture. Witnesses reported the judge dismissed every defense. A state-appointed lawyer, no independent counsel, no real evidence beyond the tortured words. The trial lasted days. The verdict was already written. On the 3rd of February 2026, the Qom Criminal Court sentenced Saleh Mohammadi to public execution at the very spot where the alleged crime occurred. Pleased to save his life poured in. In fact, former world champion Sardar Pasha spoke for many. "My heart is broken for this young wrestler. Anyone who has still shown sympathy for the Islamic Republic should understand. This is only a small glimpse of its brutality." Early on the morning of March 19, 2026, the regime ignored every plea. In Qom Central Prison, 19-year-old Saleh Mohammadi, champion wrestler, national team athlete, and dreamer, was hanged alongside 2 other young protesters, Mehdi Ghasemi and Sayyid Duwaudi. Theirs was the first execution linked to the January 2026 protests. His body was not returned to his family. His dreams died with him on that rope. Saleh Mohammadi did not die because he killed a policeman. He died because he dared to protest. Because the regime that once celebrated him as its champion now feared what he represented, a generation that refuses to stay silent. Mr. Arjun Hardas, India representative, American Jewish Committee, is joining us on the program to talk more about this. Arjun, what do you make of this senseless killing conducted in Iran? In fact, this is the problem that most of the civilized world has with Iran.
The problem, thank you for having me on your program, Vineet. The problem is what the regime is. This is who they are. And I'll also remind all our viewers that just barely 5-6 years ago, there was a young, similarly a young wrestler called Naveed Afkari, who was killed exactly, was about 27 years old, little older than Mohammadi. He was killed with exactly the same charges of the revolt against the government. Now, there is one aspect of a revolt against the government. Now, what they've done is what the government has done last time and this time is the same government. The regime has piled up charges against him to create an emotional effect that he's gone against God. Really, who speaks for that? Who gives evidence for that kind of a thing? And you see what it is, they can barely defend their own regime. And so they are taking out their frustrations, their complete impotence on innocent people. Every country has got a right of dissent, everybody's right of protest. These are economic protests. Nobody is going against Iran per se as the country. They are protesting against what they've been subjected to. It's, considering how much wealth they have, they should be doing very well. The government is a crooked government. They're crooks. They're just enriching themselves and they're enriching their own people. And unfortunately, this young man's death is just one statistic. Murder, I should call it, is just one statistic. The amount of people they have killed in the last 6 months alone. If you recall the numbers, 50,000-60,000 killed for what? Protesting. This shows who they are. When you can sympathize with Iran for what, let's say, bombings, etc., like that, we should have a very clear definition about support for the people and support for the regime. This regime does not deserve any inch of support at all.
Arjun, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. We take a short break on that note. Be right back.